The wind howled like a wounded animal, slicing through the dense forest with a ferocity that seemed almost alive. Snowflakes, sharp as shards of glass, swirled in the air, blanketing the ground in a thick, unyielding layer of white. It was the kind of cold that seeped into your bones, the kind that made you question whether the sun would ever rise again. In the heart of this frozen wilderness, a story of survival, compassion, and an impossible decision was about to unfold. It was late afternoon when Daniel Carter, a rugged outdoorsman with a heart as warm as the winters were cold, decided to check the perimeter of his remote cabin. The storm had been relentless for days, and he wanted to ensure his property was secure. As he stepped outside, the cold hit him like a punch to the chest. He pulled his thick woolen scarf tighter around his face, his breath forming clouds in the icy air. That's when he heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible whimper. At first, he thought it was the wind playing tricks on him, but as he listened more closely, the sound grew clearer. It was a cry for help, desperate and pleading. Daniel's instincts kicked in. He grabbed his flashlight and followed the sound, trudging through knee-deep snow. What he found stopped him in his tracks. A German shepherd, its fur matted with ice and snow, stood frozen in place. Its golden brown eyes locked onto Daniel's, filled with a mixture of fear and hope. But that wasn't what shocked him the most. Beneath the dog, curled up against its belly, were two tiny puppies, no more than a few weeks old. The mother had positioned herself to shield them from the biting wind, her body trembling from the effort. Daniel's heart clenched. The scene before him was both heartbreaking and awe-inspiring. The German shepherd had clearly been out here for hours, maybe even days, fighting to keep her pups alive. Her loyalty and determination were undeniable. But the question remained, how had they ended up here, in the middle of nowhere, in the dead of winter? As Daniel approached, the mother dog let out a low growl, a warning to stay back, but her eyes told a different story. She was exhausted, on the verge of collapse. Daniel knew he had to act fast. He crouched down, speaking softly to the dog, his voice calm and reassuring. "It's okay, girl. I'm here to help." The dog's growl softened, and she tilted her head as if trying to understand his words. Daniel slowly reached out, his gloved hand inches from her nose. She sniffed cautiously, her breath visible in the freezing air. Then, as if sensing his intentions, she let out a soft whine and lowered her head. Daniel wasted no time. He carefully scooped up the two puppies, cradling them against his chest. They were ice cold, their tiny bodies shivering uncontrollably. The mother dog watched him intently, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and gratitude. Daniel knew he couldn't leave her behind. "Come on, girl," he said, gesturing toward the cabin. "You're safe now." The German shepherd hesitated for a moment, then slowly, painfully, began to follow him. Her movements were stiff, her legs barely able to support her weight. Daniel walked slowly, making sure she could keep up. Every step was a struggle, but the dog pressed on, driven by the same instinct that had kept her alive this long, the need to protect her pups. When they finally reached the cabin, Daniel kicked open the door and hurried inside. He placed the puppies on the rug near the fireplace, then turned to the mother dog. She stood in the doorway, her body trembling, her eyes darting around the unfamiliar surroundings. "It's okay," Daniel said gently. "You're safe here." The dog took a tentative step forward, then another, until she was fully inside. Daniel quickly closed the door, shutting out the freezing cold. He grabbed a stack of blankets and wrapped the puppies tightly, then turned his attention to the mother. She was in bad shape. Her paws were raw and bleeding, and her fur was caked with ice. Daniel knew he had to act fast. He filled a bowl with warm water and placed it in front of her. The dog lapped at it eagerly, her tail wagging weakly. Daniel then grabbed a towel and began to gently dry her fur, careful not to cause her any more pain. As he worked, he couldn't help but marvel at her resilience. She had endured so much, all for the sake of her pups. Once the dog was dry and the puppies were warm, Daniel sat back and watched as the little family curled up together by the fire. The mother dog nuzzled her pups, licking their tiny faces as if to reassure them that everything was going to be okay. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated love, a testament to the unbreakable bond between a mother and her children. But as the hours passed, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. How had the dog ended up in the woods? Who did she belong to? And why had she been left to fend for herself in such harsh conditions?